Hey everyone, it's EJ from iDesign.com, and today I have a public service announcement for all Cinema 4D users out there. If you are not using layers, you should be. And that's my message for the day. And that's it for the tutorial. I'll see you next time. Now, so the reason why layers is so useful is every time I ask people what they want to see done or improved in Cinema 4D, usually the first thing people jump to is, well, maybe render layers, but number two is speed up the viewport. Well, if you're not using layers in Cinema 4D, then you really don't have any reason to really complain, because you could really be helping out yourself a ton if you actually know about layers. Number two, know how to use them and use them to your extreme advantage. So what are layers, first of all? So let's just go to a whole new scene here, and I have a cube and I want to add this to a layer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to say add to new layer. And normally you have your attributes manager up here, but if you click down, we have this layers tab, and that's where all of our layers are going to be. So I can double click and rename that cube. I can double click on the little chiclet tab here and change the color of that layer, and it also updates here. Now another thing is, if I have a hierarchy of cubes here, and I have this hierarchy of cubes, if I just drag and drop this, I want to add this to this cube, that's P2 cube layer, you'll see that only the top, the parent, is actually added. To get around that and add everything, including the children, we're going to hold down Command and then drag and drop, and that'll add all of the objects in the hierarchy from that parent object. So those are ways to actually get layers and add objects to layers. So now that we got that out of the way, we now know how to add objects to layers. We're going to start figuring out, all right, well then how can layers be beneficial to your workflow? So like I said before, is that with very heavy scenes like I have in here, you can see if I just hit play, my viewport is fairly slow. We're not going very fast at all. It's taking about 10 seconds to go a full 30 frames. So we want to speed this up, because it's going to be impossible to be able to do timing and keyframe things and know how fast things are going with this scene so slow in the viewport. So this is where one of the things that you can use layers for that's very important is, if I just want to focus on, say, these numbers here. So I have all these numbers, they're all in XREFs, and they all have they're XREFing a file that has dynamics applied to it. So the dynamics is baked and then brought in via XREFs. So I just want to figure out, I just want to see how this animation looks on just these numbers. So I have all these numbers in this lime green numbers layers here. So I'm going to go to my first little option here. It's this little circle, and it's right under this S tab. So S stands for solo. And if you know Solo Selected or any of those solo plugins out there, this is exactly what it's going to do. Is I'm going to hit this button. It's going to, actually, let's go to my numbers here. Click the wrong thing. If I just hit this button, it's going to bring this yellow circle with an S in it. That means I'm soloing this layer. So now I can just see these numbers here. Now they're pretty slow, and because I'm bringing in those dynamics, the dynamics from the XREF projects. Now if I want to unsolo, I just hit that button again. Say I want to solo just the shards here, so these ice shards, I can do that, and I can hit play, and things are going a little bit faster. Now all these shards have a bunch of different generator objects on them, deformers, so cloth. I have RAM effectors. I have a lot of stuff going on in this scene. I guess displacers, so we got some deformers on all of these objects. So this is very important to know, is that I have generators, I have deformers, I have all these different types of objects that are slowing down my scene. So we know what we can do with Solo. This next one over V is for visibility just in your project. So if I want to turn off visibility of the numbers, that'll turn off the visibility of the layer in my viewport. But one thing to keep in mind is that it's not going to turn off all of those generators and deformers that really bog down your scene. It's still calculating all those things, so keep that in mind. And one thing you can do is click and drag down and get rid of and activate or deactivate the visibility or any one of these options here. So this next one over, this R, means that this isn't it's not going to show up in your render. So easy enough. So say if you just want to solo something, you can just easily do that by I just want to render out these numbers by itself. Just render out this numbers layer. You can definitely do that. Let's turn them all back on. The M is for the object manager. It's viewable. This layer is viewable in the object manager. So let's see. I have the XREF numbers here. So I'm going to go to my numbers layer, and I can toggle if they show up in my object manager or not. So if you just want to focus on one thing, the numbers, I can just have that show up in my object manager and just deal with these objects and really get rid of cut down on all the clutter of all these objects that are in my scene here. So I'll turn all these back on. The L is for a lock, and it even has a nice little lock icon. So this is if you don't want to accidentally move anything. You just lock everything down, and you can see you can't even select it in your object manager. So that can come in handy when you just don't want to accidentally screw something up, which I definitely do all the time. The animation is this next one, this little film strip under the A. This means it's going to deactivate the animation tracks on this layer. So, for example, let's see, I have my camera animated. I'll just turn that off, and our camera will be stationary for the most part because we deactivated that animation track. And it's an important thing to notice is that we also have the layers, the layer colors and everything in our timeline as well. So we can actually go over and click this little eyeball to go to our view options, and we can just turn off things from showing up in our timeline window as well. So that is an important thing to notice. So let's go on to the next one, this G. And G is for generators. So what are generators? Generators are any of these green objects. So cloners, fracture objects. We have the lathe NURBS. All of our NURBS objects are generators, as well as metal balls array. So any of these greenish hued icons are called generators. So if we want to turn off, so these cloth NURBS, we can easily turn these off on this turquoisey layer by turning off the generator little triangle pyramid guy right here, and you can see that that gets rid of that extra geometry that is formed by the cloth NURBS. So just by turning off the generators on this cloth NURBS can really speed up our viewport because we're all in one swoop getting rid of all the calculations, removing all these cloth NURB calculations from our viewport. So that's the thing to keep in mind, is that when you turn off visibility of a layer, it's turning it off in a viewport. So just like we can turn it off with the V here with the eyeballs, we're still calculating all of the other objects in our scene, and that's why you'll notice that if you shut off visibility of a layer, you'll see that your viewport speed really won't increase all that much, or you would think that it would. But if you really wanted to speed up your scene, you also have to turn off the visibility, then turn off the generator, turn off the deformer, and then that'll speed up your scene. But who wants to do this for every single layer in your scene? With layers, we can globally or layer wise turn off our deformers as well. So generator G, D is deformer. So it even shows like the little twist deformer icon. So deformers are anything that is with this blue hue. So these are all your deformers right here. And so all of this is the displacers on our cloth NURBS. We can, let's see, that is the shards layer. If I turn off the deformers, you can see that that gets rid of this displacer. And combination of turning that off with the cloth NURBS and maybe even shutting off our numbers altogether here. So one thing to notice is that with XREFs, you have the ability to define it as a generator, which I did. So these are going to be treated as generators and not XREFs. And you can see that we have this little X here, and those are for XREFs. So the XREFs aren't going to affect these guys since they are defined as generators. So to turn off these, the XREFs on the numbers, is we have to deactivate the generator, and then that will turn off our numbers altogether. So we don't see our numbers. If I turn back on the generator, boom. Because our XREFs is acting as a generator, it's controlled with the little generator button here. So if you notice, I turned off the generators, deformers on the shards, which is slowing down my scene a lot. And I also turned off the generator on my XREFs because that's slowing down my scene a lot. If I hit play now, we're going pretty good, almost real time. So we're seeing our camera move and what that's looking like, looking really good. And we can just kind of work with and isolate just certain aspects of our scene. So let's move on to the next one. So we went over XREF, so that either loads or unloads your XREFs, unless of course you have your XREFs loaded in as a generator. Keep that in mind. So the E is for Expresso, and this will deactivate any Expresso in your scene. Unfortunately, I don't think I have any Expresso. Oh, I do. Just controlling my camera front blur. So sometimes if you are very into Expresso, sometimes your Expresso calculations can slow down your scene. So you can easily turn those off. With the E and these little cappuccino cups or espresso cups. Cappuccino. Come on, this is espresso. Espresso. There we go. So don't confuse these two. X is for XREF. E is for expressions or espresso. Espresso. Jeez. I'm confusing it already. So if you get confused, don't feel bad because I'm bombing this terribly. So again, to review, layers is very important for isolating parts of your scene, turning off parts of your scene, aspects of your scene that you don't want to view at the time, and just focus on certain aspects. You can turn off generators, deformers in your scene, and really speed up. Like that's going real time now from turning all that off. But we're also, with our generators turned off, if you have anything cloned, that's going to be turned off as well. So all of our cloners are generators. So you'll notice that I have all of my shards here. If I turn off the generators, all of my clones go away. So that could be handy or not handy in some occasions. So we have solo. We can solo, say, our shards and our scene elements. So our lights and our camera. And if I hold command down, we can actually enable the entire hierarchy of layers. So not only can you have layers out by themselves, but you can have layers as childs of other layers. So I have my main global scene elements, and then I broke it down, my scene elements, into a lights layer and a camera layer. And if I hold down command, I can solo all of these at once. And I have solo or command hold down again and click, you can turn them on and off as a group. Or if I just click it, I can just solo that one layer or all of them all at once. And I'm clicking and dragging, and that's one way to turn them all on and off. The only thing that stinks right now is that you can't click and drag and turn all of these guys off vertically or horizontally here. So you have to actually click each one of these guys to activate or deactivate. Kind of a pain, but at least it's really easy to globally turn on and off individual layer options here by just clicking and dragging downwards. All right, so solo, we have visibility. So visibility in your viewport. Also, that doesn't shut off any of these other generators. So you're still going to get that heavy calculation. You're just getting rid of the visibility. So we have render. So if this doesn't show up in a render or not, this is what you want. Manager, object manager, this will get rid of the objects from viewing in your, or from showing up in your object manager. L is for lock. We can lock layers down. Not going to touch them, not going to ruin your stuff. A is for animation, so you can actually deactivate certain layers animation tracks. G is for generator objects, so all of your cloners, everything, you can turn off the cloners on and off with that, or your subdivision surfaces, or your cloth NURBS as I have here. D is your deformers, so your displacers, all these guys right here. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think effectors are considered deformers here. Let's crash course. I should have actually looked at this before I recorded this, but come on, let's learn together. So D, does that actually turn off the randomness here? So we're paying attention to these little guys here. So it doesn't look, nope, it's not affecting any of our effectors here. So boom. So that's just deformers, not effectors. I don't think there's a way to turn off effectors. Let's find out. All right, so I have cloner, cubes, boom. Let's do, we're learning on the fly here. Let's do this radially. And I'm sure some people already know the answer and like, you're an idiot. You are wasting our time. That's okay. We're gonna learn together here. So let's throw this in a new layer. So I will do add to new layer, and that only brings in our cloner. So I'm going to hold down command, click and drag, and that'll also bring everything else into that layer. Let's go ahead and add a random effector, and let's give it a turbulence. That's okay, animated turbulence. Let's make this a part of this layer, and it looks like, yep, the espresso actually turns off the all of the effectors. So that is handy to know, and I forgot about that. So there you go. Effectors are affected by the espresso. So that is handy to know. So let's see. So that is deformers, espresso, or effectors as we just learned, and then XREFs. And you can have full control over everything with using layers. So it took me a while to get into the habit of using layers, because it is kind of like a whole new thing to try to remember, because you can remember it for some of these objects and then not some of them later, and then you're just working backwards, and it's kind of frustrating. But I guarantee if you take the time to learn how to use layers, it is going to save you so much time in the future just trying to get things done in your scene and really optimize the viewport. So your viewport lag, if you have viewport lag, really it's up to you to make it faster. So your computer can only go so fast, but you can really help it out and help your computer out by just focusing on the things you need, by isolating individual aspects of your objects and all your generators, all your deformers, all that good stuff. And it's really helped me a lot. I've just discovered this workflow in like the past year, and just been up and running with using it. But I know so many people that don't use layers because I dig through their files. So do everyone a favor in the MoGraph community and use layers, please, please. So that's it for me. If you don't use layers after this, if I know you and you give me a project file without layers, I'm gonna hunt you down. So thanks for dealing with all of my rambling and our discovery that the Espresso does effectors. We're all good. We learned something, and I will see you in the next tutorial. See you guys next time.